Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a highly speculative, absolutely fascinating cosmological model by independent researcher Gautam. It's a framework that completely redefines everything we think we know about the cosmos, the nature of light, and literally the fabric of reality itself. We're going to dive into a paper that flips traditional physics right on its head, suggesting that what we see, and maybe more importantly, what we don't see, is governed by a totally different set of rules than what we were all taught in school. So buckle up, because we're about to reconstruct the universe from the ground up, starting with a deceptively simple concept.
Okay, let's jump right into this paradigm shift by challenging our most basic assumption about the dark. Think about it. When you walk into a pitch-black room, your brain instantly tells you there's an absence of something, right? An absence of light. Just a void. But Powell's research asks us to completely reconsider this. We're going to scale this all the way from a localized optical quirk right up to the outer limits of the multiverse. The big idea here? Darkness is not empty space. According to this model, it's actually a highly ordered, mathematically precise state that is just brimming with potential. It isn't empty at all. It is completely full.
Now, what's incredibly fascinating here is how this model takes the fluid mechanics of everyday ocean waves and applies them directly to solar radiation. Just picture the ocean for a second. Every wave has a high point, the crest, and a low point, the trough. Well, the paper argues that sunlight propagates using these exact same alternating spatial segments. But here is the real kicker, a concept called chromatic nullification. It asks a highly specific question. What actually happens when the elevated peak of one light wave perfectly crashes into the depressed valley of another opposing light wave?
Let's walk through this step by step, because when these waves intersect, they act exactly like noise-canceling headphones, but for light. First, that crest and trough perfectly align. Then, in step 2, we get what's called structural phase cancellation. The waves haven't vanished, they're still structurally there, but they completely cancel out each other's ability to manifest. And step 3 is the profound result, the emergence of a chromatic void, absolute blackness. The active color spectrum literally dissolves. It doesn't go away, it just enters a state of manifest non-existence.
So the crucial takeaway here is that light transitions into a state of non-existence, meaning darkness is essentially light in disguise. Just take a look at this quote. It completely redefines darkness. It's not this independent, empty void just sitting around waiting to be filled with light. Instead, it's the structural counterstate of light itself. It's the genesis point. It's a local mechanic where the light is packed away, totally nullified and hidden from our observation.
And this visually illustrates the claim that darkness structurally contains the exact same 7 colors of the rainbow as visible light. The only difference is the internal kinetic state. On one side, we have the active resonance state. That's our visible light, where wave vectors are projecting outward at a high frequency. That's why we can see it. But look at the other side, the passive resonance state. This dark matrix holds those exact same fundamental colors perfectly intact. They're just functionally unmanifested. Think about that for a second. The only difference between blinding light and pitch black is literally just the internal kinetic energy of those hidden waves.
Moving right along into our next section, the macrocosmic architecture and the axiom of universal polarity.
Zooming all the way out to a macro level, the text proposes something massive. Cosmic creation is mathematically impossible without perfect equilibrium between binary opposites. The paper calls this the axiom of universal polarity. Basically, it argues that the structural framework of space-time demands existential tension. Every single manifested positive entity in our physical universe absolutely requires a deterministic negative counterpart. You just cannot have a positive without a negative balancing the cosmic equation. So if we have an observable universe on one side, there has to be an anti-universe on the other.
This rule dictates that our own sun cannot exist in isolation. It requires a binary solar matrix that pairs our visible sun with an unmanifested negative sun operating in that independent anti-universe. We have our positive sun, the existent radiance driving our physical reality and our day-night cycles with its high-frequency hour projection. But per this axiom, there must be an inverted, unmanifested stellar entity, a negative sun. This entity governs an entirely independent, negative dimensional reality that is constantly overlapping and balancing out our own observable matrix.
Which brings us to the final section, Engines of Genesis, redefining the black hole matrix.
Now, the structural aesthetic of this anti-universe appears to us as simply primordial darkness. But as we've just learned, that darkness is actually full of potential. Notice how the reciprocal model completely flips our current astrophysical understanding of black holes. Instead of being these destructive cosmic garbage disposals, they become the primary engines of cosmological genesis. Under the standard model, modern physics views black holes exclusively as gravitational sinks, terminal boundaries that just permanently eat matter and light. But Powell's framework offers this reciprocal model where a black hole is actually a cosmic womb. It's an engine of genesis relying on phase inversion. It doesn't just destroy, it translates and creates.
Let's walk through exactly how this cosmic womb functions. First, matter and passive dark frequencies are drawn into the absolute compression of a singularity. Second, deep within the negative domain of the anti-universe, a massive phase inversion takes place. Remember those latent colors we talked about earlier? Well, this is where their kinetic state flips. And finally, in step 3, all of that energy erupts outward into the positive domain as active, resonant, visible light.
So the absolutely crucial point to take away from this entire conceptual framework is this profound assertion. Darkness is not the vacant end of light, but its ultimate progenitor. By connecting the micromechanics of wave cancellation to the macromechanics of black holes, this paper completely reverses the traditional narrative. Darkness isn't just what's left over when the light goes out, it's the foundational substrate. It's the highly structured, mathematically balanced reservoir from which all observable physical reality is engineered and birthed.
I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to help reconsider the invisible architecture all around us. If what we perceive as absolute nothingness, whether it's the dark corner of a room or the terrifying singularity of a black hole, is actually a passive, hidden rainbow just waiting to invert into active existence, it completely shifts how we view the cosmos. I invite you to keep questioning the nature of our reality, to look a little closer at the spaces between the light, and to wonder what other perceived voids in our universe are secretly acting as massive, unmanifested engines of creation. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.